Welcome to another edition of Head to Head. This week it is the Japanese sports sedan edition because I have the brand new Lexus IS350 Sport and the brand newer Infiniti Q50S. And what you'll notice right off the bat is how similar these two cars look. In fact, they showed up wearing the same coat of paint. And why is that? A decade ago, Audi shocked the car world by introducing three concept cars. You had the Pikes Peak, which became the Q7, you had the Le Mans, which became the R8, and you had the Nuvolari, a shrunken version of which became the S5. And so suddenly, even though BMW had been doing it for decades, everybody needed to have a unified corporate face. And that's why these cars have big grills like this, because the Audi did. The Infiniti, they've done a pretty nice job with the Q50. I think the Lexus IS is hideous. This might be the ugliest new car on the road. A very good friend of mine is a designer for a major car company, and I asked him, what did all you guys think about the new Lexus IS? To which he put his head down on the table, picked his head back up and said, "It is f***ing awful." Now you might be thinking, but Johnny, you're ugly. You shouldn't comment on appearances. To which I'll say, but I'm married. I'm off the market. It doesn't matter how I look. But new cars are perennial mail order brides. It totally matters how they look. And so the winner, based on looks, Infiniti. However, we're not here to talk about a car's looks. We're here to talk about how these two cars drive. We're gonna start our acceleration run here in the Lexus IS350 Sport. Not a lot to launching this car. One thing I like to make sure I'm in manual mode so that it stays in first gear until I want it to shift. Left foot on the brake, right foot on the gas. As I start to roll on the gas, I start to roll off the brake a little bit. I mean, there's no advantage to just sidestepping in this car. And it's very, very drama-free launch. That red line comes up kind of quick. And we get to 60 miles an hour in 5.5 seconds. Before completing the quarter mile in 14 seconds flat at 98.5 miles per hour. And then we do our 60 to 0 braking test. 114 feet. We're starting on our figure 8. I don't think I'm going to surprise anyone when I tell you it's a lot of fun. They did a really nice job with this car. It's fun to toss into corners. It's got some power. It slides around a little bit. Right now we're in a mode called Sport Plus, which is the sportiest mode. And of course it means you have the sharpest throttle response and the transmission holds the gears the longest. When you pitch this car into a corner, initially it's good. If you're doing it at about 8/10, but if you really start to hammer on it, like I'll kind of try and demonstrate right now, can you hear the tires squealing like that? It goes into this like steady state understeer. And this car is rear wheel drive, and it's a shame because you don't want it to understeer that much. A little bit understeer, okay, it's fine. It's mostly for safety, but this thing really does push, and it'll push wide, which is, or at least on a track like this, is no good. But still, it is a lot of fun. Okay, so now we're going to launch the Infiniti Q50S, and like the Lexus, there's not a lot to it. Neither of these cars are really rocket ships, although they are fast in a sense. 60 miles an hour happens in 5.2 seconds, and we get through the quarter mile in 13.8 seconds at 102.1 miles per hour. And now we do our 60 to 0 braking test in 110 feet, not bad. Here we are, flying around our figure 8. What you notice compared to the Lexus is that car likes to push, this car likes to hang its rear end out, which is great. That's totally the fun way to drive, and really one of the benefits of having a rear-wheel drive car. There is something curious about this car though, because if you're not going at 10/10, you're kind of going how you might actually drive on a track, let's say. The car's telling you something. It's saying, harder, harder, push me harder, faster, come on, you can do more, you can do more, you can go harder, you can go faster. And then you start doing these languid, lurid drifts. It's such a hair trigger. This car only has, all the nannies on, and then one click, and it's like nanny's 90% off. Go ahead, one button, and you can just make the car do about anything. And by anything, I mean hang the rear end out. That said, if you're looking for just a straight drift machine, this could be your car. As much as it hangs the tail out, it wants you to counter steer, which is totally weird considering it doesn't have a steering column. That's right, there's no steering column. Well, there's kind of a steering column, and here's what I mean. In the Q50S, we have the optional steer-by-wire. So right now, there is a steering column, but it's disengaged. And what I mean is, there actually is a vestigial backup steering column. It has a clutch. When the power's off, it's engaged, and then when you start the car, it energizes the clutch and it opens up and it disconnects the steering column. So right now, believe it or not, I'm turning a wheel which is not connected to the wheels, yet they're turning. It's totally goofy. Our testing director, Kim Reynolds, ran around the figure eight. He said, I really wish you wouldn't have told me that it was steer-by-wire because I never would have known. It's pretty good, it's just still not as connected as an actual steering column would be. Why do steer-by-wire? I mean, what's wrong with the steering column? A couple things. One is packaging. You can have a thinner steering column and you have to do less NVH isolation. The other, though, is that you have this infinite programmability when it comes to how the car turns. So there's an Infiniti driver select, and this lets me kind of change how the car behaves. And right now I have it in personal, I have the engine and transmission set to sport, and I have the steering in standard weight with a standard response. This feels the most like a normal steering column to me. So I've got my steer-by-wire, I have my 7-speed automatic transmission, I have 328 horsepower, I have a new chassis. How does it all add up on the road? It's interesting. It's a really jittery, bangy ride. I kind of feel every imperfection on the road. This is a very stiffly sprung car. You don't get a lot of body roll. What it really wants to do is just snap that tail around, which you don't want to have happen on a 2-lane canyon road because you can snap around a corner into an oncoming semi-truck. It's a little off-putting to drive this thing. It is very quick. When you do get to a corner, the brakes are fine. The transmission's a little sluggish to downshift. I'm just not getting the feedback I want from the steering. And remember, it is totally artificial. It's steer-by-wire. I'll give you an example. I know it's fake because this right now is not connected to the wheels. So I am getting some feedback and chatter through this wheel. It's vibrating a little bit, but if I put my hand on top of the dashboard here, it's not chattering nearly as much. That's really disconcerting. Why isn't it? You know, it's because they're pumping some kind of artificial feedback through this wheel, which I guess works, but it's just tripping me out. And I gotta think, Johan Denijsen, now he's the former boss of Audi North America. He's been on the job at Infiniti for about 1 year. And obviously it takes longer, it takes about 4 or 5 years to build a new car these days. I gotta wonder, since he's trying to turn Infiniti into this performance brand, if he would have went with steer-by-wire. Now remember, it's optional. It's only an option on the S version of the Q50, but I just gotta wonder if it's the right direction. And also, you know, Infiniti went ahead, or Johan Denijsen went ahead and appointed Sebastian Vettel their director of performance. Is this what an F1 driver wants in steering? But I'd love to try this car without the steer-by-wire to see how it is. Despite my reservations about this steer-by-wire, I gotta say this is a pretty fun car to throw around a canyon. And now we're gonna talk about the interior of the Infiniti, and I like it. It's a step in the right direction. This is really nice. You've got the 2 screens, good leather, pretty good seats, nice steering wheel, good pedal placement, all that kind of stuff. The only thing that kind of gets me about the interior is Infiniti's refusal to take a stand. And here's what I mean. I have a controller knob, just like you'd find on an Audi or a Mercedes or a BMW, but it only does one thing. It only zooms the map in and out. Literally, that's all it does. Then I have a touchscreen. However, there's 3 buttons to kind of activate the touchscreen. Let's say I want to tune the radio station. So I hit the audio button, the actual physical button below it. I get to the radio section. I have to hit this submenu here. Then I'm presented with this, and I have direct tune, and I have scan, and I have presets, and I have everything but tune. There's no tune. Well, it turns out there's actually a physical tune button below the touchscreen. The touchscreen by itself would be fine, and the knob by itself would be fine, and buttons by themselves would be okay, but why 3? It's not a sophisticated solution, and it should be. Okay, and now we're rolling in the Lexus IS350 Sport. Let's start by talking about the interior. This is the very best interior Lexus has ever done this side of an LFA. And what I think we all love about it so much is it looks a lot like the LFA, especially the vents and the gauge cluster. And you should see this thing move around. Like the whole tachometer slides left or right. Super cool. Seats are great, material's great. It's a really good feeling cockpit. I'm very, very impressed by it. What I'm not impressed with, and not one bit, is this goofy joystick. I don't like how it works. And it doesn't work very well. It's almost as if the Lexus engineers were given the task of, okay, you know all the German cars have controllers, knobs? Okay, do something just like that, but different, and make sure it doesn't work as well. The only reason you build the IS in the first place is because you're copying the Germans. I mean, remember, Lexus was happy for half their existence to do nothing but build a rebadged Camry. And, you know, Infiniti too, they had that i30 was a rebadged Maxima, and they finally said, you know, if we're going to compete with the Germans, we got to go rear-wheel drive. Well, if you're going to copy that, copy the knob controllers. They work better. I've spent a lot of time with the Lexus now, and I know I said it looked hideous at the beginning of the show. It is f***ing awful. And I know at this point I'm supposed to say, you know what, the styling's really grown on me. Cancer also would really grow on a person. This thing just gets worse looking the longer I stare at it. And again, it's not so much the grille, I've decided. The grille, okay, but it's the headlights and those weird LED fish hooks under them. And the more I look at it, the more it freaks me out. Where in nature, because you always hear designers, they say, well, our power animal for design was a polar bear. Where on earth do you see like insect eyes with fish hooks? This is one of those, look what a great, powerful manufacturing company we are. We can bend metal and plastic into any shape we want, regardless of whether or not we should. So in the figure 8 course, we saw that if you really pushed it hard and got into some limit handling, the IS350's first instinct is to understeer. But you know, you don't really drive like that in the real world. And this is a great chassis. I mean, this is so fun to throw around. The progressive steering is great. The engine, even though it has a lower red line than the Infiniti, it works really well. It has a good power band. This has that new 8-speed automatic transmission, and it is better than the Infiniti's 7-speed automatic. Paddle shifters work pretty good. They're both automatics. They're not manual, sadly, and they're not dual clutches, sadly. But, man, I am impressed with how this thing drives. Remember, F-Sport means it's the sportiest Lexus you're going to get until you get into the ISF, which they haven't announced the new one yet. You know, compared to the Infiniti, I feel so much more in control. And for me, a good sports sedan is all about coming up to your favorite road, like this one, and just pounding on the thing. And what I want to feel confident. I want to feel I'm going to make it through every corner. That little bit of body lean is great. It lets me know I'm turning. The steering is accurate. If I could change anything about it, I'd add another 50 horsepower. 50 horsepower, 50 more pound-feet of torque, and then it wouldn't lag behind its rivals in a straight line. But man, other than that... And so I think it comes down to this. If you happen to live on a drag strip or live on our figure 8 course, go ahead, get the Infiniti Q50S. It is a better kind of limit athlete. But if, like most people, you spend your time driving in the real world, you're gonna want the Lexus IS350 Sport. It wins this week's head-to-head. Sorry. Okay. Hi there. Jesus, losing my mind. Too hot. Too hot. Need water. Need water. Okay. Right, oh my God, I'm sweating to death.
Yeah. Turn on the air.
Turn off the light.
Yep. This light doesn't.
Bullshit. Blindness is a form of heat.
Yeah, but feel it. It doesn't generate barely.
It's blinding. Point it at your own face for 5 minutes.
I do it every night.
Do you? I sort of believe you might do that. Now I know why actors live in trailers. You just don't want to be a big sweaty mess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Among other things.
What's the other things?
Quickie.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. Quickies. That makes sense. And where do you do cocaine in a car like this? That is how I see a lot of the commenters, though. It's just like angry, scratchy monkeys, like bouncing up and down. You said.
I don't think you'd be wrong. Like experimental monkeys just going crazy, banging on the cages. We're rolling.
Oh, good. Glad you're rolling. Whatever you say, butt muncher.